Julian, Damian Blackwood's voice was low, cutting through the silence of his penthouse office. You seem startled. His dark, penetrating gaze seemed to strip away every layer of composure Julian had carefully constructed. Of course, he was startled. After 25 years of being a beta, he was quite certain he understood the basic functions of his own body, and procreation was not one of them. He opened his mouth to protest, to call it a mistake, but the towering figure of his boss leaned over the desk, the pressure in the room becoming immense. A vein throbbed at Damian's temple, a clear sign of suppressed fury. If this unbelievable diagnosis was true, it could only have stemmed from the disastrous night of the corporate gala. Damian had been targeted. First, a catalyst slipped into his drink, then an omega from a rival firm deliberately releasing pheromones. Compounded by the unfortunate timing of his own susceptibility period, it was a perfect storm. Julian, having consumed no alcohol and being a beta, should have been immune. Yet he had woken up the next morning beside Damian, his body a canvas of marks he didn't remember receiving. He had slipped away before his boss stirred. An alpha of Damian's caliber was potent enough to cause a pregnancy from a single encounter. 6 weeks. The timeline was sickeningly precise. Damian questioned if Julian had anything he wished to say. Julian attempted to explain, his voice strained. He reminded Mr. Blackwood that his status as a beta was a known fact, a primary qualification for his position as executive assistant. He spoke of the quarterly medical examinations, rigorous checks that would have flagged any anomaly. His explanation was logical, delivered with the professional calm he was known for, yet his heart hammered against his ribs. Damian had been secretly in love with someone for 5 years, a fact he'd mentioned more than once. He was waiting until he had full control of Blackwood Enterprises to propose. If he knew his first time had been with his ordinary beta assistant, not only Damian but the entire corporate empire would metaphorically crucify him. Damian let out a hollow laugh, his eyes cold enough to freeze the air. He said he wished it were a misunderstanding, questioning how a beta could possibly be pregnant. Julian suddenly understood. The anger wasn't about the child itself. It was about the logistics. His high-intensity job was unsuitable for someone expecting, which meant he would have to take leave. As his most efficient assistant, Julian's absence would create a chaotic void. Damian was simply furious about the inconvenience of finding a replacement. Damian stated that a resignation was out of the question until a new assistant was found, tearing Julian's already prepared letter in two. It was real then. Julian couldn't stay long, or the truth would inevitably surface. He immediately instructed Human Resources to post a job opening. A week later, 10 finalists were gathered for the last round of interviews. Damian was late and unreachable by phone, but he arrived just in time, apologizing curtly for his tardiness. The atmosphere was tense, largely due to Damian's icy demeanor. Several promising candidates faltered under the pressure. 2 were dismissed quickly. At this rate, no one would be hired. During a break in the coffee nook, Julian tried to reassure the remaining applicants, explaining that Mr. Blackwood's stern expression was his default state and that he was often quite reasonable. Their forced smiles betrayed their growing fear. Suddenly, Damian appeared, his face unreadable. He took Julian's espresso and poured it down the sink. He asked quietly which candidate Julian preferred. The question felt loaded. He then pressed a warm cup of milk into Julian's hand, remarking that caffeine was bad for the baby. Julian was momentarily stunned by the flicker of thoughtfulness. Snapping back to the present, he named a few candidates he felt were strong contenders. When the interviews resumed, Damian seemed to retaliate for the inconvenience of the pregnancy by grilling Julian's preferred candidates with increasingly bizarre questions. Julian was forced to call for a halt. He pointed out to Damien that his questions were becoming unreasonable. Damien, casually flipping through a resume, feigned innocence. Julian argued that asking a candidate how they would handle a beta's surprise pregnancy was absurd. Damien's gaze was sharp. "You're pregnant, aren't you?" Julian stammered that his case was an accident. Damien countered, asking what would happen if one of them had an accident too. The logic was infuriatingly sound. Julian changed tactics, appealing to Damien's pragmatism. He reminded him that these were the top candidates. If none were hired, the mountain of contracts and documents would fall directly onto Damien's desk, a task the CEO typically delegated. Damien's expression shifted. He noted that Julian wasn't leaving forever. Was he? He leaned in close, his cold demeanor unnervingly intense. He demanded an answer. What did his return have to do with anything? Damien's eyes darkened, his grip on Julian's chin forcing his head up. He had to speak. Damien's voice was suddenly low and strained. He stated that Julian's 5-year contract was nearly up, and he still hadn't said if he would renew it. He released his grip, a strange vulnerability in his tone, as if the thought of Julian leaving pained him. But it didn't matter. Julian couldn't risk staying. He quietly confirmed he would probably not be renewing his contract. Damien's reaction was immediate and intense. He demanded to know why, offering a 7-figure salary if it was a matter of money. Ever since learning of the pregnancy, his behavior had become erratic. Julian couldn't comprehend the desperation in his voice, the exorbitant offer. He explained that it wasn't about the money. His initial salary of $500,000 had been more than generous. After paying off his debts, he had saved a substantial amount and owned 2 condos in the city, more than enough to raise a child. As Damien pressed for a real reason, another assistant arrived to remind him that the interviewees were waiting. Damien pinched the bridge of his nose and told Julian to go on ahead. The rest of the interviews went smoothly. Damien ultimately chose Julian's top recommendation, a bright young man named Alex who was scheduled to start in 3 days. After 2 weeks of intense training, a process that normally took a month, Alex was fully up to speed. With the transition complete, Julian submitted his official resignation to Damien once more. Damien refused without even looking at it. He stated with unnerving conviction that as his personal assistant, Julian had a responsibility to identify the other party involved in such a significant lapse. Julian's blood ran cold. The other party was standing right in front of him. Damien gave him a 1-month deadline to find the man. Seeing Julian's hesitation, Damien seemed to relax slightly, though his gaze was piercing as it dropped to Julian's stomach. He asked why Julian was in such a hurry to leave. Who was the father? He mused that any man who tried to control Julian's life before they were even married was unlikely to respect him. Julian realized Damien had misunderstood. He had never specified the reason for his departure or the circumstances of the child's conception. Damien thought the father was forcing him to quit. Julian quickly clarified that the decision was his own and had nothing to do with the child's father, even though, ironically, it had everything to do with him. Damien continued, his tone laced with concern. He pointed out that Julian hadn't dated anyone in the 5 years he'd worked there, and now he was suddenly pregnant and resigning. He was worried Julian was being taken advantage of. Julian tried to deny it, but Damien was resolute. He insisted that as someone with no dating experience, Julian couldn't be trusted to see the situation clearly. He declared that he was free that weekend and that Julian should arrange a meeting between him and the child's father. Before Julian could protest, Damien was ushering him to his car, deflecting every attempt to question the arrangement and instead extracting more information about Julian's home life. Back in his apartment, Julian collapsed onto his sofa. Where was he supposed to find an actor to play the father on such short notice? He should have just claimed it was a one-night stand. The weekend arrived. As Julian debated whether to simply not show up, a text message buzzed on his phone. It was from Damien, telling him to come downstairs. From his balcony, he saw Damien leaning against his car, nodding up at him. Why had he come to pick him up? He hadn't found anyone. His mind raced. Should he confess it was a one-night stand now? Would Damien even believe him? A knock echoed, followed by Damien's voice through the door, announcing that if Julian didn't open it, he would let himself in. Julian had forgotten. Damien had a spare key. The handle turned. Damien entered, his arms full of grocery bags filled with organic supplements and health foods. He asked where the father was. Julian mumbled that he wasn't back yet. Damien muttered something about the man being worthless. He then gently placed a coat over Julian's shoulders, noting the chill in the air. For a moment, Damien seemed uncharacteristically gentle. He reached out to feel Julian's forehead, asking if he felt unwell. Julian flinched. He quietly reminded his boss that it was inappropriate. Damien justified it as an employer's concern for his employees' health, which directly impacted his own workload. Julian countered that since they both supposedly had partners, it was still improper. As he stepped back, a flicker of genuine pain crossed Damien's face. He confessed that his own longtime crush, his Moonlight, had moved on. He had only found out a few days ago. The person was with someone else, they had a child, and they were getting married. Julian gently corrected him, pointing out that it wasn't a betrayal. It was just life. Damien's love had been unrequited, and the other person was free to find happiness. Damien looked at him with a mournful expression, as if chiding him for his bluntness. Julian tried to offer comfort, reminding Damien that with his status, he could have any Omega he wanted. Damien stated flatly that the person wasn't an Omega. Julian paused. He asked Damien to repeat himself, blaming his hearing. Damien deflected, instead posing a hypothetical question about a friend of his who was suddenly pregnant and secretive about the father. He wondered aloud if he should intervene, suspecting his friend was being scammed. The story sounded suspiciously familiar. As Julian started to offer advice, Damien interrupted, asking when the father was supposed to arrive. He then pulled out his phone, preparing to call the police. Julian asked what he was doing. Damien explained his theory. He suspected Julian was being scammed. The father hadn't called or texted in the half hour since Damien arrived. They had a meeting scheduled for noon, and it was now 12:30. The man's failure to appear was proof of his guilt. As the call was about to connect, Julian snatched the phone and hung up. He was about to confess when a sharp, twisting pain shot through his abdomen. Damien's panic was immediate. He scooped Julian up and rushed him to the hospital, babbling about abdominal pain and offering to release his pheromones, something the doctor had said the fetus needed for stability. He was so frantic, one would think it was his own child in distress, which, of course, it was. Julian reminded him that, as a beta, he couldn't smell pheromones. A look of disappointment crossed Damien's face, so fleeting Julian thought he might have imagined it. After an examination, the doctor berated Damien, mistaking him for the husband. He lectured him on the fragility of the first trimester and his irresponsibility, stressing the importance of providing pheromones regardless of whether his partner could consciously detect them. He sent them off with a prescription and a final. Before Julian could correct the doctor about their relationship, Damien accepted the responsibility, thanking the doctor and bustling about like a devoted partner. Later, in the quiet hospital corridor, Damien suddenly cornered Julian against a wall. He demanded to know how long Julian intended to hide the truth. He didn't believe there was a father at all. If there were, he would never have let Julian suffer alone. Julian tried to downplay the severity, but Damien exploded in a rage, calling the anonymous man a monster, a swine, an animal. He looked like a farmer whose prize crop had been trampled. If only he knew he was cursing himself. Julian tried to explain that it was an accident and that he shared the blame, adding that the father didn't even know he was pregnant. This only fueled Damien's fury. He was aghast that the man hadn't used protection, and he insisted they go for a full panel of health screenings immediately. Only after every test came back clear did Damien finally calm down. And then he announced that Julian was moving in with him. Julian was to live with him until the baby was born. Julian was stunned. Not a nearby apartment for convenience, but cohabitation with his boss. Damien explained it was for the baby's health. Living together would allow for a regular, stable supply of pheromones and make it easier for him to care for Julian. He smiled and pushed Julian toward a guest room, a disquieting idea forming in Julian's mind. When Damien suggested he take a shower, the alarm bells rang loud and clear. Julian asked if Damien was using him as a substitute for his lost love. He told him he understood his heartbreak, but using a replacement was a terrible, degrading thing to do. He even offered to arrange a vacation for Damien to clear his head. Damien looked both shocked and deeply hurt. Seeing Julian's genuine belief, he let out a bitter laugh. He didn't deny it, simply telling Julian to get some rest before leaving the room. Julian slept until evening, woken by voices from downstairs. It was Alex, giving Damien a report on the day's work. When Julian appeared at the top of the stairs, Alex saw him and froze, stammering an apology before fleeing as if he'd seen a ghost. Puzzled, Julian looked at Damien, whose ears were bright red. Then he looked down at himself. He was shirtless. He remembered putting on pajamas, but he must have taken the top off in his sleep, a nervous habit. Damien, his eyes squeezed shut, told him to put on a shirt. Julian scrambled to comply, mortified. How could he explain this? An attempt to explain would only make him look more guilty. Dinner was an exercise in awkwardness, both men staring intently at their plates, as if the answers to the universe were hidden in their food. Julian escaped back to his room, deciding he had to move out. He couldn't risk another incident. He went to find Damien to discuss it. Damien, however, thought he was there for his pheromone treatment and told him to wait in the bedroom while he showered. Julian found himself sitting on Damien's bed, the situation feeling uncomfortably like a wedding night. When Damien emerged from the bathroom, a towel slung low on his hips, the scent of fresh soap filled the air. Water droplets clung to his toned torso. Julian found himself staring. Damien asked if he liked what he saw. Startled, Julian jerked back, losing his balance and pulling Damien down with him onto the soft bed. Their faces were inches apart, the air thick with unspoken tension. Julian scrambled up. After a flurry of awkward apologies, Damien, now clothed, sat beside him and began to release his pheromones. A nearby detector confirmed the levels were optimal. Julian couldn't smell the cool pine scent everyone described, but the mix of Damien's cologne and body wash was pleasant enough. The process was boring, and soon, Julian drifted off to sleep. He woke to a heated gaze. It was another assistant, Laura, staring at him from the doorway of Damien's bedroom. It wasn't a dream. He had fallen asleep in his boss's bed, and now someone from work had seen it. He could already picture the knowing smiles he'd face at the office. Laura, who had stayed for breakfast, cornered him the moment Damien left the room. She whispered that she knew it all along. The CEO was clearly different with him. Julian tried to dismiss it, claiming Damien was just helping him find the baby's father. Laura just smiled, telling him not to worry. She wouldn't tell anyone that he was the person in question. The fork nearly slipped from Julian's hand. How did she know? Before she could elaborate, Damien returned, and the conversation ended abruptly. Later that morning, Damien announced that from now on, he would cook breakfast for Julian every day. At the office on Monday, the curious stares were relentless. Damien then informed Julian that he would be attending a gala with him that evening, posing as his partner. His family, aware of his recent heartbreak, was trying to set him up on blind dates, and he needed a deterrent. Julian, remembering the last gala, refused. He couldn't risk it. Damien gave him an ultimatum: find the baby's father by that evening, or attend the gala. Knowing it was impossible, Julian found a loophole. He told Alex that Mr. Blackwood needed him to attend the gala that night. Alex, eager to please, immediately accepted before Damien could object. Damien insisted on having dinner with Julian before he left, promising to be back by 10. But Julian knew the sharks would be circling now that Damien was single again. Sure enough, at 11, a frantic call came from Alex. Damien's susceptibility period had started early, and the hotel exits were blocked by rivals and their families. He needed Julian to bring suppressants. Julian raced to the hotel with the medication. The staff entrance was clear, and he made it to the suite. Damien, barely coherent, ordered Alex out of the room. He didn't trust the new assistant. Once alone, Julian prepared a syringe, but as he approached, Damien lunged, pulling him down onto the bed. His teeth grazed the back of Julian's neck. An alpha in his rut loses all reason. He was mistaking Julian for an omega. Julian struggled, but Damien's strength was overwhelming. Just as Damien's lips crashed down on his, Julian bit his own tongue hard. The sharp pain and taste of blood seemed to break the spell. Damien recoiled, horrified at his own actions. He grabbed the suppressants and injected himself with 5 doses before his mind was clear again. But the physical effects remained. Julian, ever the professional, helped the weakened Damien into the bathroom for a cold shower. The sounds from within were agonizing. After a long time, Damien emerged, unsteady on his feet. He told Julian to take the bed, insisting he would sleep on the sofa. Julian argued that Damien was the one who was unwell. They were at a stalemate until Julian suggested they share the bed. It was small, but they could manage. As they lay down, Damien pulled him close, murmuring it was to help with pheromone absorption. The familiar scent enveloped Julian, and his heart, for the first time, began to race for a reason other than fear. He blamed it on the pregnancy hormones. After a few days hiding out at the hotel, they slipped away, but it was too late. Someone had photographed them at the hospital and sent the pictures to the Blackwood family. Damien was summoned to a meeting with the elders. An hour later, he stormed out, followed by a patriarch whose glare was venomous. The old man warned Julian that if he stayed with Damien, he would be an enemy of the entire Blackwood clan. Damien drove Julian home in silence. He told him he needed to resign just for a little while until he could sort things out. He promised, with fierce intensity, that he would bring him back. Was this not what Julian had wanted all along? A clean break? So why did it feel like a defeat? He nodded and got out of the car. He submitted his resignation along with a formal letter of apology. The family, appeased by his contrition, dropped the matter. The entire secretarial department came to see him off. Alex was in tears, terrified of facing the mean Mr. Blackwood alone. Laura pulled him aside, asking why he didn't just tell everyone the truth about his relationship with Damien. Julian simply stated that their relationship was purely professional. The only contact from Damien was a single text message. "Wait for me." But Julian couldn't wait. He moved to Chicago. He heard no more from Damien, but news reports indicated he was on track to gain full control of the company by the end of the year. Julian found himself feeling strangely empty. At home, his thoughts constantly drifted back to his time with Damien, replaying small moments of kindness he had once dismissed as professional courtesy. Watching Damien, confident and powerful on a business news channel, an impulsive thought seized him. He had to see him. He booked the next flight to New York, but a sudden, excruciating abdominal pain forced him to the emergency room instead. A team of specialists reviewed his case, their faces grim. They explained the impossible. He had no reproductive organs. He was, as he'd always known, a beta. He couldn't be pregnant. They theorized he was experiencing a phantom pregnancy, a psychosomatic response triggered by prolonged, intense exposure to high-grade alpha pheromones, especially during susceptibility periods. His body, constantly bathed in Damien's potent scent, had been tricked into mimicking pregnancy, even developing a physical dependency. The abdominal pains were withdrawal. The only cure was more exposure. Damien liked him. It seemed impossible. He had his 5-year crush. No, Julian decided Damien was just a man who wanted a substitute, and he wouldn't be a party to it. The thought of going back and saying, "I need your pheromones," felt like surrendering to a dysfunctional fantasy. A voice, soft and familiar, whispered his name. It had to be a hallucination. "Julian, I missed you." Warm arms wrapped around him from behind, and the familiar, comforting scent filled his senses. Damien. Before Julian could process it, Damien was kissing him, a desperate, searching kiss that left him breathless. Damien buried his face in Julian's neck, confessing his terror that Julian would fall for someone else while he was busy securing his position at the company. Now that he said, the family accepted him and their child. Julian was dizzy with confusion. Did Damien know? Or was he so committed to this substitute narrative that he would raise another man's child? He gently interrupted Damien's excited talk about the nursery he'd designed. He told him the truth. "I'm not pregnant, Damien." The light in Damien's eyes dimmed, replaced by a profound disappointment. For a moment, Julian thought Damien knew the truth of that night, but then Damien was back to business, offering Julian his job back. The substitute theory solidified in Julian's mind. He refused, stating plainly that he would not be a replacement for someone else. Damien's offer escalated: the 7-figure salary, a townhouse in the city, even shares in Blackwood Enterprises. Julian held firm. He wasn't a substitute. Damien looked baffled, then let out a laugh that was more frustration than humor. "Julian," he said, his voice raw, "is it possible that I'm doing all this simply because I like you?" Julian retorted that a confession wouldn't work either. The frustration in Damien's eyes finally boiled over. "The person I've been in love with for 5 years," he bit out, "is you, Julian." The world tilted. Him? A plain, ordinary person? Damien countered that no ordinary person could perform his job so flawlessly for 5 years. He spoke of Julian's quiet resilience, his inner world of calm in the face of chaos, the way he was never intimidated by power, not even his. He confessed he had only ever wanted Julian to look at him that way. As Damien held him, Julian finally let the pieces fall into place. The racing heart, the flush he felt when Damien was near, the desperate need to see him again. It wasn't pregnancy. It was love. He lifted his head and kissed him. "I like you too, Mr. Blackwood." Later, Julian told him the full story of that night at the gala. Damien was hugely relieved, explaining that he had been raised with the belief that an alpha's first time was a sacred gift for their chosen partner. He confessed he couldn't remember everything from that night, but he was certain they had only kissed. He had been terrified that he had violated Julian in his haze. The phantom pregnancy, while a shock, had been a blessing in disguise. It had forced him to act, terrified that if he didn't claim Julian, child and all, he would lose him forever. Damien then staged a grand, public proposal. As he slipped the ring onto Julian's finger, he insisted he stop calling him Mr. Blackwood. Julian teased him, saying it had a certain appeal in other contexts. The blush that spread across the formidable CEO's face was delightful. He was, at his core, completely inexperienced. When Julian returned to work, Alex greeted him with tearful relief, confessing he thought he was about to be fired. Julian handed him a permanent contract, welcoming him to the team. As Alex read it, he muttered something under his breath about finally being able to delete the embarrassing security footage. Before Julian could ask, the door to the office opened. Damien stood there, his face a mask of cold impatience. But Julian saw the truth underneath. He strode into the office, and the door clicked shut behind them. A long, possessive kiss followed. Damien, insecure in the grip of his susceptibility period without the aid of pheromonal feedback, needed reassurance. And Julian, again and again, was happy to give it. "I love you,"